Hey guys, it's Josh back at it again with another video for y'all. I'm in my backyard again. Unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to go anywhere on location today. My car, for whatever reason, is not wanting to start. I think it's a battery situation. Unfortunately, though, that means I have to wait on my wife to get home before I can actually jumpstart the car and get going. Anyways, enough about what's going on, the ailments I have with my car. Let's talk about today's video. Today I want to talk about something that kind of gets brought up a lot at the store, which is what should I look for when I buy a new camera? Especially this is coming from people who have never owned a camera before. This is their very first camera, and it's them just kind of trying to figure out, should I go with a Sony? Should I go with a Nikon, an Olympus, a Fuji, a Canon? What should I look for in a camera? So I've come up with an acronym. Well, let me rephrase that. I didn't come up with an acronym. I saw this online and I stole it because it's really, really good. So I heard it first from James Popsies. Y'all know his YouTube channel. He's a fantastic landscape photographer that has one of the best landscape photography YouTube channels that inspired me to kind of start doing what I'm doing now. Anyways, I got it from him, so all credit to him. This is his idea. At least that's where I saw it, was his idea. I don't know if he got it from somebody else or whatnot, but here we are. So the acronym I use is BEST, B-E-S-T. So let's go through it. B. B is budget. So you have to think about, well, how much can you afford to buy for a new camera? Whether you say you have $1,000 or $5,000, you have to come up with a legitimate budget and you have to look at the cameras within that price point. I'm a firm believer that glass matters more than cameras, so therefore I always tell people, buy a cheaper camera and use that money that you saved on the camera to invest in better glass, because glass will give you better results and better, sharper images than any new camera ever will. And if you are budgeting to buy a new lens or buy a new camera, maybe you don't need a new camera, maybe you just need a new lens to give you what you're looking for, because it could be that that camera isn't going to actually give you what you're wanting. So you have to think about what your budget is, and you have to look at the cameras that are within that price point. I usually never recommend anyone try to go into debt for this, right? So don't go higher than what you can actually afford. I mean, for example, me, I have the R6, and I would love to be able to own the R5, but I can't afford $4,000 for a camera. No way. I'm never going to spend $4 grand on a camera. That's ridiculous. So instead, I spent my money other ways, right? I had about $4,000 when I sold everything from my Sony and got it for the Canon. I could have spent all $4,000 on getting a new Canon camera, but I would have had one lens, maybe a lens, maybe. I mean, that doesn't even cover tax at that point. So, I would have come out of pocket, and I didn't want to do that. So, budget-wise, the R6 was the perfect compromise. It's not as high of resolution as I may want, but it's good enough. I can still get beautiful images out of it, so I'm happy with it. So, the next letter on the acronym is E. E stands for ergonomics. Ergonomics are, well, the feel and the look and the usability of said camera. I tell customers all the time, all these cameras, the technology in them is so similar nowadays, especially like in the entry level point. Like if you are looking at, say, $1,000 or less, there's not a lot of differences as far as the technology goes, and especially like resolution. They're all typically 24 to 20 megapixels. You're not seeing big differences there. Where you are seeing the difference is the design language of the cameras. And if a camera feels good in your hand, you're more than likely going to use that camera over a camera that doesn't feel good in your hand. I've always hated the A6000 line from Sony, for example. It's too small for me. The A7 line was perfectly fine, but the A6000 line has always been too tiny. They need to get away from that weird wannabe rangefinder format and just go to a standard format. It makes more sense to do it that way. I don't know why Sony continues. Anyways, I love the feel of the Nikon Z50. right? So if we are talking under $1,000 cameras, that Z50, in my opinion, has the best grip. It is incredibly good. I feel like it feels good in the hand. The menu system is easy to understand and use. Yeah, that Z50 is fantastic. This is where I'm gonna hit on a little bit with Canon. I think that the M50 might have one of the worst grips I've ever seen. That M50, while it is a good video camera and I recommend it for vloggers all the time, there are people that it's sitting on a tripod. It's not a good camera to hold in the hand. Ergonomics plays a big deal into what somebody looks for when they buy a camera. So it is one of those, if the camera feels good in your hand, you're more than likely going to use it. So, you know, always look at that. Always go into a store that allows you to pick up the cameras and feel them before you buy. Do that and kind of feel which one feels right in your hand. I remember I had a comment a couple weeks ago where a guy asked me which one should he buy, the Z6 or the R6. And I was like, look, dude, I like both. I think both cameras are fantastic, but for me personally, because I felt the R6 and the way it felt in my hand, that was the one I wanted to go with. So that's the one I did go with. So Ergonomics is E. Now let's talk about S. S is system. So when you buy a camera, you're not just buying a camera, you're buying a system of lenses, system of accessories, system of, flashes and battery grips and lenses and all this fun stuff that we love to purchase. And so you have to think about the entire system, right? For example, if you wanted to shoot, say, professional sports, right now, the Nikon Z mount is actually your worst option. There are no good super telephotos that are designed for professional sports, right? You're not gonna see a Z9 right now on the sidelines of, say, the World Series, which go Braves. That was amazing. I love you guys. Anyways, whereas the Sony A9 and the A1 actually have a fantastic lens lineup for sports. Canon has adapted, it's a weird thing, they created a RF version of their 400 and 600, and really it's just the DSLR version with an adapter built into the lens. So that's why I say they adapted. Where Nikon, unfortunately, you would have to use the FTZ adapter, which does slow your autofocus down, and when we are talking about the professional level of sports, isn't what you need. You need autofocus to be incredibly fast and incredibly accurate, because these athletes at the professional level are insanely fast. Or, for example, if you wanted to do portrait photography, where Nikon actually excels is their 1.8 primes. They are a little bit more expensive, but they have some of the best 1.8 primes out there. And that's where Canon actually kind of falls apart, is their 1.8 primes are kind of cheap. They're not great. So, each one has its benefits and negatives. For me, as a landscape photographer, I never need fast glass because, well, one, my stuff isn't moving, right? Trees and mountains and things like that, they're not getting up and just walking. I mean, they might if we were in Middle Earth, but we're not. We're in real Earth. So when you are looking at purchasing your first camera or purchasing a new camera or whatever, think about the system at which you're buying into. Make sure that system has the accessories and it has the lenses available for what you're wanting to do, because there is nothing worse than buying a $1,000 camera and realizing you can't use it for what you wanted to use it for, because at that point it's just a $1,000 paperweight. So, system. Next is technology. And when I say technology, I mean, does the camera do exactly what you want it to do? Whether it's shoot 4K video. Well, obviously if you want to shoot 4K, buying, say, like a Canon T7 isn't going to do that because the camera can't do it. Or I'll even go ahead and say the M50, because that crop is so bad on the M50 when you do 4K, it's not a 4K camera. Sorry, Canon, it's not. If you want to be able to do portraiture, well, look at the color science coming out of the JPEGs of these cameras. A lot of people like Canons, a lot of people like Nikons. You got to think, does it have the ability to do in-body image stabilization, right? So if you are wanting to do handheld video, or if you want to do handheld longer exposures, well, if your camera doesn't have in-body image stabilization, you're gonna have to bring out a tripod or a gimbal. So think about the technology that's also inside your cameras and keep that in mind when you are purchasing your camera. Because again, nothing's worse than buying a $1,000 camera and it doesn't do what you thought it would do. And this is where talking to your local camera sales rep will help you out a lot, because we're kind of nerds for this stuff. We love getting into the specs. Spec sheets always interest us sometimes. So it is fun to kind of just go over what those specs are with customers and explaining what those specs mean. Because if I were to tell you what 4K 30p all I means, if I were just to say that and not explain it to you, you're gonna be like, well, I don't know what that is. So it is good to have someone walk you through what that does, and that's where talking to a local camera shop is really, really helpful. Anyways, guys, so hopefully later tonight or this afternoon I can get my car fixed. I'm probably gonna have to take it to like AutoZone or something like that and get a new battery, because I think it is the battery that has gone bad. One day I accidentally left the lights on overnight and it's been having issues ever since. And I thought, okay, maybe if I just use the car, it'll recharge battery, but unfortunately I don't think that happened. I think the battery just, it was on its last leg. So anyways, enough about the car. We are so close to 100 subscribers, guys. And remember, at 100, I am giving away a free tripod. It is the Manfrotto Smart Action, I think, or Smart Advanced. Yeah, that's what it is, Smart Advanced. It's a $100 tripod. Feel free to comment, like, subscribe, get all of your friends to subscribe. Because again, we get up to 100, somebody is getting a tripod. So, without much further ado, peace.